Welcome back to the show. Devastated by the Biden administration's policy on climate change, laid-off pipeline workers and oil and gas businesses owners are finding their voice with our own Brian Kilmeade.
Brian flew down to Texas for an in-depth look at the Lone Star State's energy sector alongside Texas Land Commissioner George P. Bush. And Brian joins us now with more of his exclusive interview. What'd you learn, Brian?
Hey, Brian.
Well, a couple of things I learned. Number one, I think they're flat out devastated about what's happening. They're scared about what could happen next. They feel as though their best offense is going to be to take the Biden administration to court. Remember, they won that one judgment that said the 100-day, allowing the 100-day pause on deportations is not going to fly. A judge says, you're absolutely right. Texas doesn't do that. You get deported right away should you not qualify. But when it comes to oil and gas, when they came out and said, hey, you can't drill on federal land for a while. Oh, that includes fracking. And when they said, oh, wait a second, that pipeline, that's got to stop. Even though it ends in Texas and it's already have people working on it, that's got to stop. But when they're worried about the next one and the next one and the next one, and when you're land commissioner of Texas, that's a lot of pressure, whether it's the infrastructure after a deep freeze, whether it's what's happening at the border, and now this. So what I did is caught up with George P. Bush, who's now in his second term. You know, he's the son of Jeb Bush. He's got an extremely bright future, just in his 40s now. And what he's doing is he knows the oil business. His grandfather was in it. His uncle was in it. And he said, I want to find out what you need and what you can do and what's going wrong. So I met with him first. We went to the round table, and then we went out to the oil fields. Here's a look of my day in Midland. When President Joe Biden, hours into taking office, signed an executive order killing the XL pipeline here in Texas, they knew they were going to be in trouble. But this is Texas, and Texas fights back. And that's exactly what they did with the Texas Defense Task Force, led by Land Commissioner George P. Bush.
We're already in the courthouse in different parts of the country fighting some of the reckless policies that we've seen from the left. So we're excited to bring the fight back.
But he comes out and says, goodbye XL pipeline. And he says, oh yeah, when it comes to drilling on federal land, we're going to pause that. How does that resonate in Texas?
Well, it sends a very dangerous message to our state. The industry directly employs 400,000 Texans and indirectly employs over 1 million. We will lose 120,000 jobs if the federal lease policy stays in place for the rest of this year alone.
What about next year? What about the year after? Are the jobs going to multiply exponentially? That are just going to disappear?
They will unless we do something about it, and that's what we're doing in Texas. We're going to visit with small business owners that have felt the personal pain of what it means to let go of workers.
We've lost 40 to 50,000 jobs here locally in Midland, Odessa.
What were you thinking when you saw President Biden open up those books and sign those executive orders?
What hit me significantly was the fact of thinking about all of the assets that I had operating in New Mexico and having the conversation of, you guys are going to have to move to West Texas or you're going to have to go find something else to do.
So immediately that book opens, he signs his signature, and they are out of a job.
Oh, it's significant like that.
Do you think that they understand these are people with jobs?
They don't.
I got laid off the 1st of August. Was without work for 4.5 months. I was slated to go up to the Keystone.
It was set to go to the XL pipeline?
Yes, sir. We was really hoping everything was going to pick up as COVID eased off. And then we just kind of got slammed in the gut again.
How?
When Mr. Biden come in and knocked out 11,000 jobs the first day he's in office. I mean, the ramifications for that are still being felt in the industry. It's easy to say just go find another job, but when you're the head of a household and that other job you're going to do is going to pay you half as much as what you're used to, that's not quite as easy as it sounds.
Your message is just let me work.
Yeah, just let us do our job.
So, George, now I'm going to get a chance to see what it's like working on a rig.
Absolutely. This is going to be the best training facility that you will find.
Should we go in?
Let's do it. Safety first.
Come on. Okay. What is this?
This is a pumping unit.
What are we looking for? Oil, gas?
Yeah, oh yeah. You'll be having oil and gas mixed together coming out of this segment. Natural gas coming out of this one. They commingle into a flow line and go to production facilities.
Wow.
This is just a tiny fraction of what all goes into your typical oil field.
Right, and I was staggered to find out you need workers.
Absolutely we need workers.
What happened?
When it slows down and people get frustrated and leave the industry, they say they're never coming back, and they don't.
But you say these are great paying jobs, George, right?
Absolutely. It pays over $125,000 per year.
And you do make money.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
George, you've had this job for a while. When you got hit with that freeze, did you sense that there was some people on the left who were almost happy about it?
Absolutely. They laughed at the misfortune of a red state. But the reality is that what it messaged to people in our state is that we need to produce more energy.
You also have a border issue on top of that.
Communities on our border that are dealing with this incredible influx of not only unaccompanied children, but illegal immigrants that are coming across. We're tired of the federal government not stepping up to the plate and accepting their responsibility in this effort.
Matthew McConaughey, he wants to run for governor. He's thinking about it, getting into politics. What advice would you give him?
Well, maybe he needs to continue to think about it.
What do you say about your people say your party's fractured?
I think there's nothing more unifying in Republican Party politics than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. After a few years of left-wing progressive ideas, everyday Americans are going to say this is enough.
Does that make you want to seek another position?
I've been privileged to serve as land commissioner for the last 6 years, but we need new leadership in this high statewide executive role.
And you're hoping to run for?
I'm taking a very serious look at Attorney General.
And when would you make that decision?
Well, right now, as I mentioned, we're so focused on fixing the winter grid, pushing back the overreach, working on during this legislative session, but expect an announcement fairly soon.
So a couple of things. For George P. Bush, he's very tight with Donald Trump Jr. He's never had a problem with Donald Trump, even though obviously his dad did, and his uncle's been kind of quiet, but you know how he feels. I think he's got a bright future. But having said that, before I throw it back to you guys, just so you keep in mind, Texas is oil and gas for the country, for the world. What they do in oil and gas is stunning. But what they also do in green is unbelievable. In wind, they lead. In fact, they do more in wind energy, which provides 20% of the energy for Texas, than the next 3 states combined. They are second only to California when it comes to solar. They're going to pass California next year. So they're not running from green. They're environmentally conscious. But they know right now America needs fossil fuel, and they see political posturing. And in turn, and I know Lawrence and Jillian, you just did this story. Jillian, you were just doing restaurants and gyms. Lawrence, you're meeting these people every single day, whether it's in the middle of a riot or it's at the border. These families are finding out they're coming home going, I'm out of a job, and I'm worried what's next. So they leave Midland, Texas,
and Biden
go find another career.
New energy jobs, and we haven't seen those yet.
None. There's none. And they don't want to wait around for another job to come up. They'll just pick up stakes, and they're not coming back.
A lot of people have been devastated in this last year, that's for sure.